Hello guys and welcome to another video. Today we're gonna be doing something really interesting and I think you guys gonna like it. So basically last time we created our REST API for a book directory application. We created the basic root operations of any REST API. So today we are going to implement those endpoints in our React application. The tools that we're going to be use are Redux. We're going to use Redux for the states. We're going to use Axios to make requests to the backend, Material UI for the entire design, React Router DOM for the routes of the app. So to give you guys a quick run through the project that we're going to create, basically we have here a home page with all of the books. We have some information like the title, a short description, authors, and a thumbnail. So basically if we go to the edit book, we go to a page that has a form, and here we can edit basically a book. We can add the description, we can add the title, the page, everything, basically everything, and we can also delete the book. So let's just say that we want to delete this author and we want to add a short description. So we update the book and basically this is pretty much, and the book is updated. If we try to refresh the page, we get the same information. Now I'm gonna exit the full screen mode that I have. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna make this again on full screen. So as we can see, we don't have the other author that was before, and now we have a short description. Okay guys, and this is pretty much all we are gonna be building, and with this in mind, let's get started. Okay guys, so as you can see here we have a default project that you get when you use the create react app command. So it's pretty much the same. The only difference is that I already installed some libraries, or actually the libraries that we're gonna use, in this case redux-thunk, Redux, React Router DOM, React Redux, React Final Form Arrays, React Final Form Arrays, Final Form, Axios, and the Material UI core. So basically these are the libraries. Once you have those installed, I think we're gonna be on the same page. Perfect. Okay, so I want to start first by removing a couple of files that I don't think we're gonna need. In this case, the app.css, the test, also the logo, and the setup test. Okay, so we're going to delete these files. We're going to get some errors, but we can clean up this. The app, I'm just going to basically remove everything inside there, and now we can get an empty project at the moment. Okay, perfect. So once we have this, one of the first things that I want to do is to go and create the Redux store. So in this case, if we go to Redux here on Google Chrome, we can see that we haven't found any store, so I'm gonna start with that. I'm gonna close this, and on the source directory on the React app, I'm going to start with a store file, and this is the one that we're going to use to create the store. I'm going to import a couple of functions that we are going to need from Redux to create the store. So we're going to import create store, also compose, and apply middleware. These are the main functions from Redux that we're going to need. We're also going to need thunk, so we're going to import thunk from this redux-thunk, yeah. And I need to import also Axios from Axios. And there is one file that we need, but I think we can go into that later. But for now, I'm gonna start creating the function to create the store. So we are going to get some initial state, but for this tutorial I don't think we're gonna need it. But yeah, now we are going to add the middlewares for Redux. So we can just treat it like that, thunk, it's an array, but I wanna insert Axios. So I'm just gonna use with X argument Axios, and you will see later why I add this extra argument. Okay, now that we have the middlewares, I'm going to enable the Redux development tools. So for this, I have here a piece of code that we can use to enable that. So I think there is a library, so you can do this in a better way. But for now, I'm gonna use this this type of way of doing it. Okay, so now we are going to typing this wrong, enhancer, and we are going to use compose enhancers, and here we are going to apply the middleware, and we apply the middleware that we created. Okay, and now we can also create the store. Okay, so we are going to create the store now, and here's the reducers that we are gonna need, and this is the file that I was talking about here that we need, but because we don't have this yet, I'm just going to do it like that. I'm going to add the next one, that it is our initial state, then our enhancer, and I can return now the store. And I'm going to export this function that we just created. Okay, so now we are going to get an error probably if we try to create the Redux, or we try to configure this store, because we don't have this depth variable. So for that, I'm going to check if we are in development mode. So we're going to use variable, an environment variable for this that I'm gonna add later. So React app m, we don't have it, or in this case, if we have it and the environment is equals to development, that means that we are on development mode, and we are going to enable the Redux development tools for that. So we save this. Now it is time to add the reducers. Remember that we still need to add that here. So I'm gonna create a new file called reducer, and inside reducer, I'm going to import from Redux, and there's a function called combine reducers. Okay, so now we are going to import the reducers. At the moment we don't have any reducer created, but we are just going to use this format because I already know how we are going to create the reducers. You will later see how this makes sense. So I'm going to import everything. I'm going to name this page reducers, and basically the reducers are going to be inside a folder called containers and inside a file called reducers, saying we are going to export all of the reducers on this file. Okay, so now we declare prepare reducer, we combine the reducers, and we add this page reducers. You can later here, for example, if you're working on a bigger project, you can have lower reducers, and you can import those here as well and combine those reducers. But for now, we're gonna keep it simple and only have reducers for each page. Okay, so now here we can export these reducers. Okay, now we go back to the store. Here we we call the reducer that we just created, and we add that inside the first argument on create a store, and here we call create reducer. And with this we will have the basic configuration for the store. Now we are going to insert the store here on the index.js. So for this we're gonna need the provider, that this is coming from React Redux, and we are gonna need also the configure store from the store that we just created. So we wrap the app and we add the store here. Okay, and now that we have this here, we need to create this store. So you just say configure store, and with this we will have the store ready. Okay, we are getting an error because we forgot to add the provider here, and also we cannot resolve these reducers. Remember that we added the reducers here, that it is going to be inside containers and a file called reducers. So to fix it, we are going to create our containers, and inside here we create a reducer.js and we add an export, and here we're going to export all of the reducers. So now we refresh this and we get now this error that it says can resolve. Okay, it cannot resolve this. Let me see if I'm typing this. Go to containers and reducers. Okay, it was working fine, but I don't know what it was happening, but it's working now. So now if we try to go to inspect and we go to Redux here, we can see now that we get this development tool working, but we don't have any state, so we don't see anything here yet. Okay, perfect. So now we are going to start creating the first page, and we're going to start with the home page. Okay, so I think we can close all of this and create our first page. We're going to call home page. Okay, now we have here the home page, and we can basically copy the app structure here and just change the name for this component. I don't think we need the class here for now. Okay, so now here we have the home page, and we can create our reducer for the home page. And for that, I like to use the same name and add doc after that. And with this, we will have our reducer. So for a reducer, we're going to have an initial state, for now empty, and we are going to export a default call page reducer. I'm going to add this as a function, and here we have an state, and we pass this initial state that we just created, action, and basically here this is the typical way of using Redux. So I forgot. Okay, can receive payload type or payload from action, but basically we are going to switch the type of this action, and for now, because we don't have anything on default, we return the state. We save this. Okay, and so now we can reflect the changes on here. We need to do a couple of things. First, we need to export this home page, and so we can add it on their React router dump, and also we need to export this homepage reducer. So we're going to start by adding the homepage route. So inside our containers, as you can see here, we are going to have an index file, and here we are going to have all of the pages that we are going to create, and we're going to export those here. So we're going to export the home page. So we say home page, and here we go to the home page file. Okay, now we have the home page exported. So now we can access the home page from this index file, and we also need to export the home page reducer. So for this, we're going to name the reducer the same name. So import homepage from homepage, and this we import the doc file that we created for this. So now that we have these reducers here, we can close this and the index as well. And now all of the routes of the app are going to be here. So we're going to import first from React router DOM. We are going to import browser router, name that the route, and also switch. Perfect. So this is the basic structure that we're gonna need to start creating our routes. And also need to import the component that we created. So because we export that from the index, so basically we just access to the containers, and we can call this home page. So we can remove this, and here we add the router. Okay, we add the switch, and here we add the route exact. We add the path to be basically index. We add the component, and the component is homepage. Okay, we'll see we get some errors. Okay, yeah, we get the payload is not being used. So we refresh the page. Now we see the state here. We see our home page being added here. Now because we don't have any states on the reducer, so here we don't see anything, so I'm just gonna add something like test null. I'm going to refresh, and now on the state we can see that we get this test. Perfect. Now I have here the server that we're gonna use already running on port 5000, so that's perfect. And I'm gonna show you not this, it is actually this page. This is the page. I'm gonna keep this here. Okay, so I want to start first by fetching the data that we're gonna use for this page, and for this we have an endpoint to fetch all of the books. So yeah, we're gonna start with here on the doc file for the home page. Later we are going to move to the design things here, but for now we're gonna keep it here. Okay, so now I think we can remove this test because we're not going to need it. Okay, so we are going to declare a couple of states that we are actually going to need. So we're going to need the state when we are fetching the books, so we use fetch books progress. We also need when we get an error, we are going to add that error inside this state, the fetch book error. A book is books, and the actual books that we get from the API response. Perfect. So now we need to define some action types. So we can define those here, and we need to define first when we fetch books, when we make the request. And for this is a way that I like doing this. So I use app slash the name of the page slash and the name of this action type. So that way we make sure we don't duplicate these keys every time we are creating a reducer on other pages. So I'm just going to copy and paste this 2 more times. Now we get the state for success and also the state for error, and we just change the names here after the slash homepage slash. Okay, so great. Now that we have this, we are going to create or we can maybe start here. We can start defining how the state is gonna change based on these types. So now we can say, in the case that we have this state, the type, we're going to return the state, but we are going to make this to be true, the fetch books in progress to be true, and in case that we have an error from a previous fetch, we're going to make this null. Okay, I'm gonna format this. I'm gonna copy and paste this 2 more times so we can do the success and the error. So now when this is a success and when this is an error. Okay, for success we make this false, same for the error. So that means that we stop fetching the data. Now when it is a success on the payload, we are going to get all of the books. So basically we just replace books for this payload, and when there is an error, the fetch book error, we replace it with payload. Great. Now we're going to make our actions creators. You don't necessarily need to make this, but I like to do it because I think it makes the code looks cleaner. So if you want to follow these steps, go ahead. So now we create the action creator for fetch books request, and basically this is a return. The type is fetch books request, and as always we duplicate this 2 more times, and now this is when it is successful and also when there is an error. Now for the success, we're going to get data as an argument, and that data is going to be inside payload. So pass that data inside payload, and basically we hit this type, it comes on the reducer, it says okay, now we are on success, and we replace this payload that comes from this book success, and we replace the books, or we added the books basically. And for the error, we receive an argument for the error, and we just pass the payload. Same thing, we pass the error, and this is the error that we are going to set on this fetch books error. Okay, now it is time to create our thunk actions, so our functions to request data from the API. So for this, we're going to use export const fetch books, and first we have a function, then when we use the dispatch when we add the fetch books inside a dispatch, we get another function with these variables, dispatch and get state. Perfect. So now these dispatch and get states are the default arguments that you get from thunk. So here on our store, if we just keep or we just leave the thunk here, we only get those 2, but because we added this extra argument and we added Axios, we basically have access to this other extra argument that it is called Axios. So this other argument we can access by just adding Axios here. Okay, so now here we use the dispatch to tell that we need to fetch books request. Okay, so we enable this fetch books in progress to be true, and this is the function that we're using. Now because this is async, we return Axios get. This is a get request, and here the route for the API, it is API v1 books. You can go and check the video that we did last time, so you can see all the routes that we're gonna use for this. But basically this is the route to fetch the books. This is not quite going to work, you will see later why, but we're gonna keep doing this and show you guys later. So now we receive a response, and with this response we call the action creator fetch books request, and we pass the response, and we need to pass data because this is the way that Axios displays the data by calling response.data. Then with the catch we get an error, and we just dispatch this fetch books error, and we pass the error that we got. Now let's format this. Okay, and here it is success, not request. Now let's save this. Okay, perfect. So this is basically all we need for this reducer to fetch the data, and now we can move to the home page. In case that there is something, we can just go back and fix that. Okay, so now here on the home page we're gonna need a couple of functions from React Redux in order to call the state and the dispatch. So use dispatch. This is a hook from React Redux, and use selector. Okay, so now here inside our function we can call dispatch, and we use dispatch, and we also can get the states from the use selector. In use selector we get the state from Redux. Basically we will have access to all of the states, but for now we only need the state from the home page, and we have access to this home page because if we see our Redux, this is the information that we need, the home page. This is why we need to name these reducers with the same name, so it's easy to access this information. So the information that we have access to with this is basically to this states that we declare on the initial state, but we don't need to have this information. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now that we have this, we can call our fetch books from our homepage .doc. Basically we will have access to this function that it is called fetch books. So we're going to use the use effect book to call this fetch books function. Great. So now we just call here dispatch. Remember the dispatch is this one that we just access here, and we can fetch the books. And we save this. We see that we get these warnings, but it is because we are not using the fetch books in progress in all of these, but that's okay. Okay, let me see, let me refresh the page. Okay, we are getting a lot of errors, and that's because, close this and see what is happening. Okay guys, I realized this is forgot to add these square brackets here, so it doesn't fetch all the time, so just once when we refresh the page. It's not going to work because I think it is getting overloaded, so just gonna open this on a new tab and paste this here. Now if we go to inspect, we are not going to get anything here because it says that it wasn't found. So basically here on the API /v1/books is making the request to the same port that we are using for this front end. So in this case, what we need to do is in our package are a proxy to our backend. So we add proxy and we call this HTTP localhost, and this will be the address that we are using for our backend. We are listening on port 5000. Okay, so now we can close this, can refresh the page. Now it says that it was not found. Okay, I believe we need to restart the server in order for this to work, so we are just going to restart the server. Okay, now we go to inspect console. We don't get any errors here. We go to Redux, we go to home page, and it is not working. Okay guys, so after looking at this really well, I forgot about one thing. This is the reason why you don't copy and paste everything. So here on the types are for the actions creators, we didn't change the names for the types. So basically with this now it should work. So we see the state, we can see now that our books are here. So basically we have 291 books, and the diff, we can see that you moved from true to false and all of this information if you want to see it. But basically with this now we can start displaying the information here, similar as we did with this original design. So we are going to work on this next. Perfect. We can close now the doc here, the app.js. We don't need it for now. For now we can create here on our div, we can check if we are making a fetch, so we just display loading, and if not, we don't display anything. And we can also check if we get an error or something, fetch books error, right? So we say here error fetching books, and if we don't have any errors, we just don't display anything. Just to make sure that it is working, we can do a map of the books here. Basically we get a book, we also need index, and we can just return here a simple div, and we can pass the key here. We need to do this every time we make a map. Okay, And if we see on Redux here in the state and we check one of the properties, we can see we have these attributes that we can access. But for now, we're just going to display the title just to see if it is working. So we just make this an h2 and we say book.title and we save this. It says loading and we get all of the titles of the books. Nice. Perfect. So let's continue. Okay, so now because I saw this design actually on an example of Material UI, I'm basically just going to use that example for this book directory. So we're going to work on that. First thing is to import a couple of components from Material UI. So we'll say Material UI core and we're going to use the styles. So make styles. Okay, use the grid as well, paper, typography, and button base. Okay, now we can start with just creating basically a simple use styles. We're going to use the theme later for our margins and patterns and all of that. Basically we will use these styles as a normal hook. So use com classes is equals to use styles, and this uses styles in case that you wonder if you don't know too well. This is this hook that we created here. Perfect. So now for our books design, as you can see, we have some space between these elements and a paper basically. So we're going to use that for each book. So I think we can delete this. We can add paper. I think we can pass the class names later. Now we can use index. Here we can use a grid of container. Okay, I don't know why it's not auto-completing for me, but yeah. Like I said, this design is from an example that I saw on Material UI, so I'm not gonna go in detail with this. Okay, so this is our grid item, and here we're going to have an image. So we use this one. Okay, this also complete. It's not working for me, but it's okay. So we are going to get later a class for this image, to add the image basically. And now we import the image, because for each book we have a thumbnail. So we're also going to have an img alt. We pass the book that title. Okay, let's check really quick how a book thumbnail URL will look. Okay, so basically we have access to this property. Okay, so let's add the image here. So we say book thumbnail.url. We save this. Okay, now it's loading, and as we can see, now we have all of our images. I'm gonna close really quick this page that we have here, because I think it's slowing down my computer. So we have now all of the images, and this button base is basically makes this effect, as you can see here. Okay, cool. Now this is our grid for the images. I think we can style a little bit this so it doesn't look that bad. So for our paper, I think we can add an after key. We're going to have a class. Okay, let me see, class. Okay, and we are going to have a class called paper. And for our grid, we don't need anything here, and we already have the image and all of this. Okay, perfect. So now here on our styles, we can work with our paper. All of this information, remember, is from an example on Material UI, so just gonna copy and paste these designs here. And also for our image. Okay, so as you can see, this is the result for these classes, paper, image, and EMG, that are the paper, that it is our first component from each book. This is the effect that we see here, this shadow effect. We get the image wrapper and we get the EMG. Cool, now let's keep working on this. Here where our first grid ends, we're going to add a new grid of type item. And actually I don't think is where our first is after this grid. Okay, so we're going to say item, this is an x of 12, and use sm container. Format this, and we're going to start with adding another grid item. I'm just gonna copy and paste because it's a long line for this. Okay, so we close this, and here is where we are going to add also another grid. I'm gonna leave the link of this example on the description, so you guys just can go ahead and copy if that's what you want, so you don't have to type all of this. So yeah, now for the title, this is the title of the book. We're going to use the title. Okay, let's see how it looks for now. Let's save. It's loading, and perfect. Now we have the title. Now we need to add also a short description. If you remember from the example that I showed you, we are gonna need a short description, and this is a property that we have here in our book. So we are going to copy that, paste it here, we save, and we have the short description. There are some books that don't have that, but that's okay. Now I need to change here a little bit how it looks. So the typography for that is this one. Okay, nice. Now we need to add also the authors, and this is going to require some CSS later, but for now we can keep it like this, and for the authors we say authors. And because now if we see on our Redux state and we go to books, we see that authors is an array, so we need to go through each item and just print the name. So we do that by saying book, okay, the authors, the map, and here we can declare a for author and the index, so we can use it as key. So basically we said if we have a, because there are sometimes that we don't have like an author, or it is a blank author, I don't know, and we're just going to make sure that the author exists, and if it does exist we add this author, right? And we don't have the author, we just don't display anything, we set null. Let's save this. As you can see here we have all of the authors. They're not separated, but that's why we are going to use CSS to fix that. Okay, so there is a way that we can use CSS modules, so we can use a normal CSS, but to show you guys, we can use CSS modules, so you guys can see how it works with that. So we just add the module name, and it needs to be CSS in order for this to work, okay? And basically the way that we import that here in our home page, we can just import CSS from this home page, a module.css, and we will have a CSS module here. Okay, so for the author we add a new class name in this span that we added for each author, and we use the CSS author key, similar as we are doing with these classes from Material UI, but basically here we have an actual CSS file to work, so we can do basically everything that you will do with a normal CSS. Okay, perfect. Now we have this author, and what we are going to do is that we're going just to add a separator for each author. So we access the after, so basically we'll add, after the name we will add something here. So the content just going to be that color light gray, okay, I don't know, okay, I'm forgetting to close this so I can get the autocomplete here. Okay, font weight, it can be bold, font size 20 pixels, and high because you don't want any space, and display inline, so it is on the same line as the text. So now we can see here that we get this line after the name, and we have the same with everything. Cool. So now this is pretty much, I think, all we need to do for now with the CSS. Later we'll see we need more, but we can close that, and this is actually the reason why I like to have folders for each page, because we can have a lot of components that we need for this page here without making a mess. Cool. And now that we have this, we can add, or actually I think we only need to add one more thing, and that's it for, let's see, yeah, I don't think we need any type of typography, so we're just going to add the simple one, and we are a class name, and we use classes, right, from material UI. So we access that, and now here we need to add a link to the edit book page, but because we don't have a page for that, we're just going to simulate that it was there. Oh, it is there actually. So for that we need a component from React router DOM that will link us to the edit book page. So we add this link and we say to, basically we add this, and here we use pass the book ID. In this case, if you saw the video from the Node.js API, so we use the ESBN as the ID. And one thing to notice here is that I saw that there are some books that have this ESBN duplicated here, so there might be some books and you are trying to edit here something. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind, but you will usually use an ID or something actually that is unique in here. But the place where I took this had the ESBNs being duplicated, and that is not ideal. Okay, so perfect. Now we have here the edit book. If we go to this page, we can see that our local host go to the ESBN of this book, and if we go back, we get again the books. And right now it is a little bit slow because I need to update the library inside this React, but I will do that in a second. And for now we get this warning, and that's because we need to pass the dispatch here on the use effect basically. And with this we don't get any more warnings. And cool, I'm gonna pause the video and update the library really quick and come back. Okay guys, so I just updated the library, so now we can refresh here. We get the loading and we get the books. Cool, so this is pretty much all we need for the home page. We are just fetching the books so we can navigate later to the edit book option here. So this page, like I said, you go to app.js where we have all of the routes. We don't have this page, so we're going to do that right now. Okay, so now we can close this and also this. Site containers, we're going to create a new one called edit book page. So we call this edit book.page.js, and also we add the doc file that it will be our Redux. For this one, I think I can also do the same thing. I'm just going to copy and paste. For this, I'm just going to rename it so I can get the name. For this, let me see, I'm just going to use a simple div here. Okay. And for containers, we don't need any of these, neither any of these things, so we can now export this page. Okay, and I'll always like to keep the same order as we have it here. I'm just going to call edit book page, and this name needs to be the same. Okay, great. And I'm going to do the same for the reducer, so you can export. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do, but I'm going to rename this edit book page.doc, and we export this reducer as well. Of course, this reducer is empty. We don't have anything there yet, but that's okay. Now, in our app, actually, here we need to import that edit book. Okay, it's not working for me, the auto completion, but I think it's there. Yeah. Okay. So now we just add this edit and we add the param ID. So basically this ID is the one that we will be able to access later from here, so we can fetch the information for this specific book. Set edit, edit book page. So we save it, and now if we go to the edit book page, so you can see that it is working. We are just going to call this edit. Okay, I don't know if it is not working, or let me check. Okay, yeah, I see. I added the edit here. Let me see how. Okay, we are not using any edit. We are just using the ID, so we can just keep it like that with the ID. And now we can see the edit. Now we can close this. We can start working on this section. Okay, guys, so let's go to the doc file for this edit page, edit book page, and here basically we are going to be doing something similar as we did here on the home page. So I don't see why not copy and paste this, you know. We just need to change some names. So first thing is to change the name of the reducer. So this is edit book page reducer. Great. So now I think we can, yeah, let's change the states completely. So we are going to call this edit, or not edit, because we first need to fetch the book that we get from this page. So we need a state to fetch that. So fetch book in progress. I think we could keep the same name. So fetch book error, and instead of an array of books, you only get one book, and we're going to set that book to be null by default. So here the action types, we just remove the s at the end, and we change these names. And remember, because we are on the edit book page, we also need to change these names here after the app.slash, or not that, app/edit book page. And here on our reducer, we can just change the names for these types for the fetch book. Also here, okay, and for the fetch book error, the fetch book error here, in case that we have an error. Basically, we just change the names for the states here. So when we are requesting a book, we set the fetch book in progress to be true and the error null in case that we have an error before. For the success, we add the payload to have this book, and we are not fetching anymore, so we set it to false. Same with the error, but in this case we don't pass a book but a book error. Okay, so here we can just remove the books and keep it only to be book. Then we need to change the action types to be only book instead of books. The data, we can keep the same thing, an argument that have the data for this book. So yeah, like I said, this is the same as books, but only fetching one book. So here we change fetch books to be fetch books. I think I missed an O, but I will fix that later. Now it's working, so I don't have to worry about any of that. Okay, so we get these errors on the doc file. Okay, yeah, because these do not exist. We have here fetch book request. Request is here, the success, and the error. The same thing, but now here instead of this being books, we use an ID we are going to pass here as an argument, right, of fetch book, and we just said slash basically, and we pass here the ID, and this should fetch the book that we want, in this case the ID. In case that we don't have it, we will probably get an error response here. So yeah, or something. You decide that on the backend, but for the backend that we did in our last video, we only we display an error. We don't have a book, I think, and yeah, cool. So now here we can do something similar as we did with the home page. So we have a use state here, or no use state, use effect, and also we need to import the dispatch and the use selector from React Redux. So use dispatch, use selector, so we can get access to this. So let me just save this really quick and going here on the state. Here we get undefined for this, and let me see why we are getting undefined. I'm gonna refresh that again. Yeah, we are getting undefined, so let me check edit book page. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure why we are getting this undefined here, but we will continue and see if there is something that we need to add here, just in case. Basically, we use the dispatch here, and we use the use selector to get the state from this state. So we use state edit book page, that it is the name of the reducer. Remember here, edit book page. Okay, so now here we should be able to get this fetch in progress, fetch book error, and the book. Let's just check really quick. Book error. Yeah, and in progress should be false. Yeah, yeah, I don't know why this Redux thing here is undefined. But I will check this and see if we are missing out something. Basically, it is working because we're getting the state here. So yeah, we'll see. Now that we have this, we need to fetch the book. So for that, we use in the use effect. It is where basically you will do these operations, right? So now, in order to get this ID, we have a couple of props that come from the React Router DOM library. So to get the ID, we access to the match and this match comes from React Router DOM, and this match we can access to the params of this, but same match.params, and here we can decide to get the ID, and we were to have more params, we will be able to access them here in case that you didn't know. So that is there. But for now we are going to check for the ID. So now we have an ID, we dispatch the book. So fetch book, it should import that for us. Okay, it comes from the edit book page.doc, and we pass here the ID. So we also need to pass the dispatch and the props, and these props are gonna come from props, right? So we can see that there. If we go to Redux, now it's working, and we get the book as you can see. Now we go back to the home page, and let's try to flex for in action. So we edit the book. Now here, I don't know why it is so slow for me, but yeah, let me check. Okay, so here we decided to edit this book. Now, okay, yeah, need to go to the last, basically last state that we have here. So now this, we have the title of this book, and we can do that with all of the books, and it should be working fine. Okay, so now that we have the book here, we can go ahead and start creating our form. So we can edit the book or we can delete the book. Okay guys, so I'm recording this video in a different date, so in case that you wonder that you see something different here, but yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that. But for now we can start, before creating our form, we're gonna start printing some messages here on the screen, same as we did here on the home page. So basically we're going to copy and paste this information that displays when we are loading the book or when we have an error with the book. So we just change some variables, and here we have the loading and also error fetching book. So basically we get the loading as you can see here, and if we were to have an error, for example, error fetching the book because this book is not on the database. Okay, perfect. Now we can start by adding some styles to this page. So we are going to start by adding the paper from Material UI. So we're going to the home page, and we are just going to copy these components that we basically going to use here. I don't think we need the button base, but we are gonna need the rest of these components. So we are going to start by checking if we have a book. Okay, so we have a book. Basically we are going to display something there. If not, we just replace it with null. And here we're going to add the paper, and we are going to add a class name for this. And right now we don't have that, but basically I think we can do it right now. It's the same thing as we did here on the home page. We create the styles. Alright, I don't think we need these images, but we are going to use this paper one. So basically we use the styles that we just created here. So now we can access to the classes there. So classes.paper. Okay, perfect. So now from here we can start working now on the form that we're gonna display here. As you can see now, we have the paper we created here. We're going to start now adding the form, but the form we are not going to create that on this page. We're actually going to use folder for the forms of this app. So we create the forms and we use the edit book form, but this is a folder, so we need to create a folder first. So basically we are using the same format as here, where we have the components in folders, and we have an index to export all of the components for that folder. So here we add our edit book form, and we also add an index to export the form. So now on the edit book form, we can basically copy a lot of the structure from here. We remove the unnecessary lines of code. We might have, yeah, I think we need to use the style, so we're just going to keep that. I don't think we need Redux here, and also we don't need the use effect from React. Cool. So now for the form, okay, I forgot one thing. I forgot to change the name. Okay, now we have the name here. So for the forms, we're going to use React Final Form for this. If you don't know how to use it, I'm gonna leave a link on the description. I did like a couple of videos about this, so you can go and check that out, and so you can understand this better if you don't have any experience with React Final Form. But the first thing to do is to import the form that comes from React Final Form. Okay, form, and we add the form here. Okay, now on the form we're going to pass all of the props that we pass in our edit book page to this form here. Remember, these props come from here. Okay, so now we are going to start rendering some stuff here. So form from React Final Form has a prop called render. So this render has a function with basically some props, so we call these form props, and here we return a normal form like you will do. Okay, and these form props we get some values or some properties as well. For example, we can handle the submit that we are going to pass here on these props that basically are being set on this page. I know it's a little bit weird, but this is how React Final Form works. So here we can pass the onSubmit function. We handle the submit for this form. Now for this we can use grid from Material UI to start adding all of our fields. So we're going to add a grid of type container. Okay, and we're going to align the items, okay, to the flex start, and we are going to add a spacing of 4, and with this we can start adding our grid items. So our first field, that it will be for our title, we're going to add in a grid item with a width of 12 for the grid. So basically it will take the entire width, and we're going to do that with all of the fields, but before doing that we need to add our fields. There is a lot of ways of doing this, but for this tutorial I'm gonna create a custom field so we can also use the field input from Material UI. So I'm gonna go really quick and add a new folder in the source directory called components, and here we're going to create a new field text input. Okay, I always forgot to add the main folder, and we add a new file there and also the index. Okay, so here we can close for now the index and start working on this field text input. Basically we are gonna create a field text input so we can reuse it for all of the fields of this form. Okay, so let's go to the field text input. I think we can copy and paste a lot of things from here. Okay, we're gonna keep this here, and also React Final Form because we're gonna need the field from React Final Form, so we added that. And here we call this field text input component, and we are going to return here a text field from Material UI. This is the text field. Okay, and we close this for now. And now that we have this component, we need to create our field, but our field from React Final Form, and insert this custom component that we're gonna create here. So we create a new field text input. We receive some props. Basically this is the field that we are going to export, in case that you wonder. And we return a new field. This field is from React Final Form. Okay, so React Final Form can accept a component. This is our custom component, so we add this field text input component, and we pass the rest of the props that we could have in this field text input, and we export the field text input. Okay, now we're going to make this really quick. There is a lot of things that we can do, for example the way that we display errors and stuff like that, but you can go and check the tutorials that I did for this React Final Form library. But yeah, for now we're gonna keep it simple. Okay, so from these props there is a couple of things that we can do with this. So from this field component that it is from React Final Form, we get an attribute called input, and this input contains like the onChange function, the name, and a couple of things that you can go and check the documentation. But basically we can just take all of the input from the form, and also we can take the rest of the props that we might pass to this component. Okay, and we are going to create here a new input props. Okay, and we pass the input, and we also pass the rest of fields, and basically this rest will be like style properties or things that we might pass to this text field component from Material UI, and the input is for the field here on React Final Form. Okay, so here we can just pass these input props. Okay, simple as that. And we need to create a new class for this, and we are going to use these styles for this. So use the styles. We're going to have here an input, and we're going to make the width to be 100%. Basically it can use the width of the grids that we're going to pass here. You will see later, but for now we can keep it like that. And here on the class name, we got this class that we just created. Okay, classes.input. And I don't think we need this thing attribute here, but for now we can keep it like that. Okay, and I think this is pretty much. I don't know if I'm missing something, but we'll see. Okay, so now we can close this field text input here and open the index inside the components folder, so we can export this. I'm gonna call this field text input from field text input and field text input. As you can see, we follow a same pattern from the containers and the forms. But yeah, okay, cool. Now that we have that, we can come here in our form and we can import this custom input that we created. So we are going to components, okay, and we add this text field text input. Okay, now that we have that there, we can start adding the fields, and here is really simple. We just add the field text input, and here we need to pass an ID. This ID will have the name of title, the name of title, then a label of title. We can close this, we can format. And one thing to consider if you don't know too much about React Final Form, but the name needs to match basically the property that it is coming from our database. So in this case, the title here, for example, we need to match this name attribute, same for the page count and the rest of the fields. This published date, we're not going to add this on the fields because it has this weird symbol and it makes things more complicated for you guys, so we're not going to use it for now. But the rest of fields we can add, and keep in mind that the name needs to be the same as this one. You can also use a custom name, we can call it like that, but it will make things more complicated when we submit the form and we need to match the values from these names to these values here on the database. So to keep it easier for you, you just match the name. Okay, cool. Now to see this field text input, we're going to start adding this form to the edit book page. So in our index here that it is inside the forms, we export as default. Okay, and we call this edit book form. Edit book form. We access the edit book form file. Okay, we format this, we can close it, and now we go to the edit book page, and here we can import that form. Okay, so we go to forms and we can import the edit book form. Okay, edit book form, great. Now that form, we are going to add it inside this paper. So we can just add the edit book form like this, and we can close it. Right now there is a couple of things that we need. For example, we will get an error if we don't send an onSubmit function, and this needs to be a function. So for now we can call these values and we can print values. Okay, just okay, what I'm doing here is a mess. Okay, we can format this, and also we can pass the initial values, and one thing to know, guys, here, I'm gonna pass the book so we can have our fields being filled at first. Okay, we get this error, we're gonna fix it, but basically one thing to know here with this edit book form, these props that we're passing are being added here inside the form. So basically these props are from this form here. Okay, so the initial values and onSubmit are properties from the form of React Final Form. Okay, so make the styles on the file text input. So basically I think we didn't import that, so we can add it there. And now, as you can see here, we have the title, and it is added automatically because we add the initial values, and here we keep the same name as the property. So for example, if we change the name here, we're not gonna get a title. So this is why we use the same name. And as you can see, we here have the label and everything, so everything is working fine. Now we can do basically the same for all of the rest of fields here. So we can copy and paste, and this one is for our page count. So here we can change the label, sorry, and the page count is a type of number. Okay, now I don't want this to be filled on the entire width, so I'm just gonna make this to be 4. Okay, I'm gonna copy and paste this again, and this is the status of the book, and the type, we can keep it to be a string. Okay, so let's see how it looks at the moment. Okay, so we can see how the page count being already filled by the data that comes from the book. So really cool. Now we need to add something for the thumbnail. URL. Okay. You can save and see how it looks. Okay, as you can see, we get the URL for the thumbnail. We can add an extra field for the short description. Okay. You just change the names here. And we also have another one for the long description. We can format this, we save it, and here we see we can have the short description and the large or the long description. And now one thing to add here is the multi-line. Okay, so we add the multi-line there. As you can see, here we get the short and the long description. Now there is one thing that we need to add here for the short and long description, and basically we need to parse this. And to keep it simple, basically this parse thing, what it does is that, for example, if we remove all of the description, we are still going to get this value when we submit our form. So we can have basically a blank description, and the reason for that is because if we don't do it and we remove the text, basically our form is not going to submit this value when we are trying to update. So basically if we're trying to remove the description, we are not going to remove the description because this value is not getting passed on the onSubmit function, if that makes sense at all. but you can go and check what exactly it does. So this parse thing, what it does is that it will give us always the value even if we don't have uh, any type of text here. Okay, now I think this is pretty much all we need for these basic fields, and now we can start working on the fields for the author and the categories. Those are a little bit different, and we need to extend a little bit the functionality that we get from final form, but it's nothing too complicated. Okay, so basically to make that work, we need to add here array mutators. So okay, we import this from final form arrays. Okay, so we add this, and we also add the field array, and this is coming from React final form arrays. So we add the field array. Okay, and here in our form we need to add these array mutators. Okay, so basically we pass mutators. As you can see, we have that function there, and here we pass the array mutators. Okay, so now this will give us the functionality to have arrays. Okay, now we need to add our grid for our authors. We're going to start with the author, so we're going to make this to be 6, so half the width of the screen. And here we're going to use typography from Material UI. I don't think we need paper for now. And here typography, the variant needs to be, in this case, subtitle 1, so it matches a little bit like this short description label that we have there. The color is text secondary. Okay, and here we add the authors. So we save this. And as you can see, here we have the authors. Now here later we will add a button so we can add more authors and categories as well, but for now we're going to start with our field array. So we will create our field array here. We will pass a name. This name, remember, needs to match also the name on the API. So in this case, similar to this name, this in this case is authors. As you can see, we go to the stage of this book, we see here authors, so this is the name that we need to pass there. Okay, and now here we have something called fields. All right, so now we can, okay, it is here, we can pass here a component to render something here. So for now we're going to pass a simple div, and here we are going to pass our field text input that we just created. Now we need to pass also a key, remember, because basically, okay, I'm forgetting something here. So we pass the fields here, but I forgot one thing, that it is mapping these fields. Sorry about that, but basically we map all of these fields. We get a field. We also need the index. Okay, and here we can close that. Okay, here. Okay, this is closing this one here, and then we close another there. and we'll see later how we can fix that. It's a mess, but yeah, anyways. Okay, so we format this a little bit. Here are, we can close this field text input. Okay, so it was working here. Okay, so basically we go through all of the fields that we have, that we might have in these authors. In this case, each field is one author, if that makes sense. And here on the key for this one we pass an index, but okay, I don't think we need to pass here the key. We can pass the key here. I just type that. Okay, index. Alright, now for the ID we can just pass the field. Alright, for the name of this we can pass also the field, and because we want to have a placeholder and we are trying to add a new field, we call this author. Okay, so now let's save this and see if we are missing something. So now, as you can see here, we get this author added here. So we go to the state and we check for the authors of this book. We only have one. Okay, and now we can go back here. Okay, I'm just gonna go to localhost, and we can go to this one that has more books, and as you more authors, sorry, we can close this and we can see that we get all of the books, all of the authors. I don't know why I'm saying books, but yeah, anyways. Now we need to add a button here to add a book, and maybe add some styles here to separate a little bit this, and add a button to remove a book. Okay, so for that there is some functions that we have from the mutators here, and they are added on the form props. So we go to mutators here. It's mutators. Oh, it is from forms. Okay, form. Inside form we have mutators. In mutators we have a function called push, so we can basically push or add a new author. That's the function that we're gonna have here with a button, but for now we're going to add the remove option. Okay, so here inside this div that we just created, we're going to add a span with an onClick function. This onClick function, we are going to navigate through fields. We're going to remove, and we remove this index. Okay. There is a couple of props that we need to pass that React throws a warning if we don't pass this these props, but okay. This is area label. This is remove. This is just a name. We're going to add in the style, so we separate a little bit this from the field. This is a pointer, and we add some padding top, and we close this, and I have here this emoji or icon to display here. Okay, so now you can see if we click this one, we remove the authors. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna reload the screen here really quick. So now that we have this, we can start adding a button to add new authors. So we import the button, And inside authors here we can add this button, right? This is a variant called contain. The size, I want this to be small. Color primary, and we can call this add, and this one will have the on-click function of adding a new book. So a new author. I don't know what is going on with me, but we are a new author, and we use this push function from these mutators here. So we pass the name authors, needs to be this one. Okay, so you pass the authors and you can pass here some values to this one, but in this case I'm just gonna pass undefined, so we have, or we get a blank author. So if we try to add authors, we can add the authors here. Perfect. Now next thing, it is to add some classes. So I'm gonna start with the fields over here. So add a class name. I'm gonna add classes. I'm gonna call this field array. Okay. We're also going to need one for the wrapper here. Okay, class name. Use classes, and we can call this field array wrapper. We also need one for this button over here. So you can pass that here, called class name. Use, okay, I'm gonna close it. So okay, so we add this add button. Okay, and we also can pass one here to the label. So class name, classes dot field label. Okay, so we can add some space between these two. Okay, so we're going to start with the field label. Okay, here we're also going to add the add button. Okay, we are going to add the field array wrapper and field array. Okay, what happened there? Just field array here, and we can start adding some styles. So for this field wrapper, basically it is this entire field. So for this we can add a display flex, so we display everything on the same line, and we add some space between each element. So we add a padding button of theme data spacing of 2. Okay, that's for our field. Now for our field array, we expand this on flex 1 so it takes the space of the screen, and we add a margin right of 20, so it adds some space. So I think we forgot to add these use styles. Okay, so now we can see here that we have our fields on the same line, our field with our delete button on the same line. All right, and we have some space between each field. So now for our add button that is here, we are just going to separate that a little bit from the label, so we have a margin left of 20. And for our field label, we are going to add some space between the label and the fields. So adding button, and we add the same space we used to. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have this basic structure for the authors, basically it will be the same thing for our categories. So I'm gonna show you first how exactly this looks when we are trying to submit. So here we are doing a console log of the values if we were to submit, but I don't have the button, so I'm just gonna add that really quick. So we go here before we close the grid container and we add a new grid, and this is view 6 for the column. Okay, we add this button. The variant is contain, the color primary color, and we use the type of submit. So we can submit this form and we call this update. Okay, so as you guys can see, here we have our button. So I'm just gonna bring this over here and go to the console. So we try to update these values. Okay, so now as you can see, here we have all the information basically that we have filled in this form. So in this case, for example, if we remove an author and we update the form, we can see that we don't have now this or that author. And if we try to add a new one, just say that we use, I don't know, coding venue. Okay, and if we try to update, now we can see that we get the coding venue. And basically we can copy and paste the categories for this, and yeah, it should work. So we're going to take from here on the grid, we paste that below, we change the name for categories. Okay, and we refresh the page. Now we can see the update is below this, and we can basically also see the categories here. We can add. Okay, so now the add, I forgot one thing. When we are trying to add a new category, we need to use this name. Okay, we save. Now it should work. Okay, we try to add a new one, so we can call this, I don't know, C++, and if we update, we can come here and see C++, and if we remove the first one, we can see that we don't have now the that first category. I don't remember the name, but the thing is that this is how we get the data. The data already have the names same as the API, so we can send this data and basically update this this book. So this is what we are going to do now. In terms of this form, I think we can close this one. Now we are ready to start working with the update. So we can close the home page here, and also these components, and we can only keep the edit book page. So for this is really similar. We're going to have a in progress, but for the update, so we just change here update in progress, and also we have something when we get an error update or update error, we just change the name here. And also with this action types, we can just copy and paste, and we can just name this. Okay, I don't know why it's not working, this multi-select option. I don't know. The thing is that we just change the name here, to update. I don't know why Visual Studio is being weird right now, but yep. Okay, we change the names now. Okay, so now we can also update the states based on the action type. And now here we get the update book request, update book success, and update book error. Now here we change this name for the update in progress. Okay, so when we request, we are updating and we have success, and when we have an error, we make the update in progress to be false and the update error, okay, null at first, and when we get an error, we pass the payload information. And now for the book, we pass the payload. Basically, we receive the data updated from the REST API. Now we use this here, and we also change the name. Okay, so update book request, update book success, and update book error. And we also change these action types here, and we keep this data and this error argument that we pass here on this function, basically because when we update, we want to get the new book updated. Okay, so that way we can also check if we have an error or something. And yeah, okay, so now we create a new thunk function here, and basically in this case we are updating the book, so let's change the name to update book. And here we also need the ID, of course, and we also need to change this, instead of fetch book request, to update book request. Axios.put, and the address or endpoint for this is the same. And now when we update the success, if you saw my video, basically we return the updated book, and we use the same dispatch and response data to get the data. And with this we will have now the option to update our books. So let's save this, let's go to edit book page, and here we add the function that we just created. Okay, now we can come here in our submit function, okay, and we can basically call this up dispatch, and we update the book, and the ID is basically our book.esbn. Alright, this book is this one. And one thing I forgot to add, of course, is that we don't only send an ID, but we also send the updated data. We can call these params. Okay, so I'm thinking that maybe we can use only params here. We can keep it simple. Okay, only pass params, and here we destruct these params. Okay, so we get an ESBN, and we also get the updated values from params. Okay, so that way we keep clean when we are trying to call it here. Basically we only pass values. Okay, we pass the values there, and here need to pass also the updated values from here. Okay, so the ID ESBN, we change it for that. And now let's check if we go to network. Okay, so here we're going to let's remove this Stephen Brown. We're just going to copy to have a reference for that, and we send the update, and this went to our database, our REST API, and updated the book successfully. As we can see here, the payload, all the information that we pass, the author without that last one author that we removed, and basically yeah, we pass that, and this is the response that we got. And now if we refresh, we can see that we don't have that author anymore. Now one thing to do here is that we can add this keep. I don't remember how to type this, so I'm gonna go on the form. Okay, there is a property here, it's called keep there, yeah, this one. So basically we use it to refresh these initial values every time that the book changes, so that way we get the updated data here on this form. All right, so okay, now we can add a book and author. I don't know why I'm saying book so many times, but yeah, coding venue, we update, we got the data. You can go to Redux also and check this data. Okay, the book we changed, we added the new authors. Here we have the coding venue. You can also refresh. Okay, the book is called same framework. Okay, and we can look for that book and we can see here the new author. Okay, perfect. So basically everything is working. We can also change the name here, 111. Okay, we can I don't know, let's remove the short description and make the long description only to Rails, and let's change the pages to 430. We can update. Okay, we can refresh the page to see, and as you guys can see, we have now this data. I don't know, did I remove this one? Because if I did, I think it's not working. We update this. Yep, it's not working. And let me just go really quick and check something. Okay, for the network. Okay, let's update this. Now on the headers we are not sending the short description. Okay, let's see what the problem is about. So this is our short description. We parse this. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what is the problem here, because basically this parse function it makes this option possible to be able to remove this. So but to make sure that it is working, we can check by just leaving the send there. We can update, we can refresh the page, and we can see that now we have only send. All right, okay guys, so now one thing that we can do is that we can add also something like this to know when we are updating or when we get an error. So in our doc file we have the update in progress. Okay, and we also have the update error. So basically here we can call updating and name this updating, and when we get an error updating book. Cool. So now let's try to edit a book. Okay, and we can just change here the title. We can just add an M. We update, we see that text showing there, and if we refresh we can see that we get the new title. Okay, and now we can add also an extra button so we can delete this book. Okay, so for that let's add here a new action type to delete the book. So we basically have delete book request, and we update the name is here. Alright, and we have some states here, so delete in progress and delete book error. Okay, aquí we could have add the book, but we're just gonna keep it like that for now. So here the states are gonna change when we have the book delete success and the error. Basically we just change the in progress and also the book, and we have a success response, we make the book to be null. Okay, so update book, okay, delete book error. So we just have add the information to the state in case that we get an error. And this one, it's a little bit different on the arguments that we pass, but the rest is the same. So we have delete book success and error. So now for the book request, you update this, so delete book request, delete book success. Now we don't pass a payload here because we are deleting the book. Alright, so we can keep that just like that, and the error, we get the error, so we want to pass when we have an error. Okay, now we create a new function here, and we call this remove, or let's keep it delete book. Alright, and we get an ID. We don't need to have these params, but we change, oh my god, okay, we change the delete book request here, delete book success. We don't send a response this time. Remember, we are from the API, we only get a success message, so we only need to make the success when we delete the book, so we make this book to be null. Okay, and in case that we get an error, we just change it to error. We don't have updated values here, and this endpoint is delete. Okay, and now we can go to our edit book page and add delete book. We can remove these elements here and add a button. Okay, we can come here and basically add a button, a variant of contain, the color secondary, so it's red. We can call this delete book, and the onClick function, basically we make a dispatch to that delete function that we created. So delete book, okay, and we pass the book.esv, and that it is our ID. Okay, so we format this, we refresh, and we get this button here. We can add some styles, so I think we are calling it classes here. Yeah, we can add this a class name, classes, delete button. Okay, so we can add a margin top here of 20 pixels. And now to make sure that it is working, let's update this and see that we can have this book. Okay, we update the book, we go back. This is the first book that we're trying to delete. Basically we delete the book. Now we don't see anything. Remember, that's the reason why we keep this skip 30 here, so we can update the initial value. So now that we don't have a book, we can go back and we don't see now this book is loading, and now we don't see it. Okay, perfect. Okay guys, one thing that we can do now, it's add also the same thing but for delete a book. So we delete the book in progress, or we have the delete book in progress and also the error, and we display that information here. Okay, so we can call kill deleting road deleting, and call this removing. Sounds weird. Okay, we can just wait. We can go to flex 4. Okay, and we can delete the book. We weren't able to see it because it was on top, but basically it is there. So now we don't get the flex 4 in action. It loads the data, and yeah, this is pretty much all we need to do to have these CRUD operations working. As you guys can see, it's really simple to create, and yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and if you guys did, please subscribe to the channel. That will help a lot. Like the video, you can recommend this video to your friends, and yeah, any questions, any suggestions, guys, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys on the next video.